Shalom, shalom to everyone watching here. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero. Very interesting things happening, not only here in the United States, but also in Israel. I got a message from the new coalition government of Israel indicating that the Ministry of Education in Israel is doing the same thing, the exact same thing that the left has been pushing here in our public educational system. Yes, teaching things that are shtus, that are basically contrary to Torah value. I'll post the message in a few minutes after it completes, after I finish this video, so you can see exactly what is happening in Israel, how they're having to really clean the slate of these leftist morons that completely deter and destroy the very fiber of Jewish and godly societies, or societies that basically are for God. And we see that has taken place in a very strong way. It's taken hold here in the United States, where the educational system is basically pro-grooming. And this is all part of a whole entire global plan to pervert the entire world to this moral relativity that exists in the minds and brains of these leftists, thinking they're doing a good to our children, and what they're doing is damning them to an area which the best way I can describe it is Sodomites. Sodomite culture taking hold of our educational system, and I'm using the proper word because it's perverting. It is completely demoralizing families of basic family structures. Everything has to do with family, moral values. They're tearing it apart, and this has been ongoing, and we have been asleep as we see this take place. And this is completely heart-trenching. I mean, to see some of the actual words coming in there, that they're giving the rights, they're giving power to a group of individuals who ascended and was granted certain legal anomalies, as it were, to be able to practice their life the way they want to practice it, has only brought curses, at least to this country. And I mentioned this many times, ever since Obama passed that, and where our own present Congress is now repeating the same mistake, they are creating a curse upon this country that we have no idea the ramifications of it. Israel is now realizing the same thing was being done in its internal government, educational ministry. You see, the whole plan of these leftist, socialist, communists, and by the way, I'm going to say this, I may upset some people, I hope I do, because we need to realize that truth, no matter from where it comes from, is truth. There was some, I remember when I used to live over there by the Chabad of Yorba Linda, dear friend Rabbi David Eliezri, may God continue to bless him. And I used to live close to the Nixon Library there in Yorba Linda. When the news came out about the library tapes that came out of Nixon's White House and his conversation with then evangelist Billy Graham. And Billy Graham had in those audio tapes, and you could go and visit the library and hear them. Of course, you have to make an appointment to hear them, in which I was able to hear some of the audio tapes damning the Jewish community, not because of the moral high level of morality, just the opposite. The tapes were declared, as it were, anti-Semitic from Billy Graham. But listening to the tape very closely, you'll understand that the criticism of the Jewish community was launched not at the religious establishment. It was launched at the leftist, democratic, communist Jews that came into this country to turn over this government. This was all during the period of Nixon's rule. And he was very concerned of the leftist Jew, which, by the way, it has always been the case in the problems. The problems with the Jews in different governments is their involvement in trying to turn over and bring down the government by feeding government and policies into an immoral society. And that is not our purpose. Our purpose as Jews is to be a light unto the nation, not to be darkness in the nation. And yet we have seen time and time again, over and over again, that there causes the correlation between the leftist liberal Jews and their behavior and that of anti-Semitism, which, by the way, under this Democratic administration is on an all-time high. It wasn't even comparatively this level as when the Republicans were in power. Just the opposite. Trump presented a bill to have certain protections upon the Jewish community because of anti-Semitism and the attacks and the false accusation and narrative that he was a racist, that he was an anti-Semite. All of these things which were propelled from the left, not from the right, from those that basically are in power now. And then we get this issue with Kanye West and his declaration that basically is absurd, but he was hurt by Jews, and you can hear that. Any psychologist would hear him, would realize that they really screwed him over. Pardon my French, but that's exactly what they did to Kanye. And we need to come to understanding that we as Jews, observant Jews, need to conduct ourselves as observant Jews. And that is completely not as behemoths, not as rashims. And yet this is how many of these liberal Jews have been behaving themselves as. Not as good Jews, not as Torah observant Jews, but just the opposite, doing harm even to our own fellow Jews. Why am I saying this? Because when I read this from the group of those members of that's forming the new right in Israel, they said that one of the things they're going to have to remove is this whole entire educational Ministry of Education that has implanted in their laws the same shtus that this government has implanted in its laws. This whole idea of choose your sex, push and force it upon the children. This is the same thing that was happening in New York. When the religious establishments began to receive funding from the government, it was with strings attached to it. And as I said many times, those strings are very deadly and dangerous for the Jewish community, and has done exactly that, has undermined every religious institutions in New York and the world around, including California, including areas where the Jewish community is located at. And yet we still turn the other way and we think, they're still, our fellow Jews who basically are bringing themselves under the rule of communist socialist ideologies. Think about this. Just think about what's happening here. The recent FTX scandal was a gentleman named Sam Friedman. Think about it. Another Madoff. Another Jew involved in a scandal of not doing proper business and underwriting the liberal leftist ideologies in this country that is destroying this country to parts and pieces. Ken McCarthy just recently said very clearly that he was going to remove Schiff off his position involved in the intelligence department. There is a lot of corruption, my friends, and many of them are Jews involved in this whole entire affair of corruption. And this level of height awareness of the general public about Jewish involvement in the corrupt dealings doesn't make us look good at all. It makes us look as criminals, as completely diabolical. And my friends, this is really a warning to all Israel. We are our brother's keepers, are we not? Are we not to watch the misbehaviors of our fellow Jew and even call them on it and tell them this is not the way we practice our faith in God? And yet, as if it were, it's completely justified, all types of thieveries, all types of being a ganev. What's going on here? This is going to only bring worse situations upon the Jews. It's going to increase the levels of anti-Semitism and hate. If we don't correct our conduct, if we don't change our ways, I fear for the situation of the Jews in this country. And I agree with the new right in Israel. Maybe they need to cut off the leftist liberal establishment of Jews in this country from even doing Aliyah. They have destroyed with their own hands and policies and ideologies. They have become the new Nazi party, as it were, in this country. They're destroying every fiber of morality and ethics in regards to their policy and dictates. Look at what they're pushing forward onto our children and even the children of Americans. It's not good, my friends. And therefore, there's no voices in our community raising up and saying, this is wrong. This must stop. This immorality that's being pushed on to our children and the children of Americans and Israelis is completely wrong. It must stop. It must be highlighted that these orgy parties that they're having in Miami Beach must stop. Yes, Jews involved in orgy parties. Have we forgotten the Epstein Island? Another Jew? And you want to have your head up tall? Oh yes, we can have these parties of immoralities and orgies and have no consequence to it? My friends, there are consequences to it. We know very clearly that Epstein was using all of his activities in order to blackmail high-level politicians. That's known already. And the names on the list is an incredible list. And when more of those names get out to the public basically is already numbed to the actions of immorality, the actions of complete perversion that they see from the Jewish community. No wonder people are crying out and saying, you know, these Jews are this and that. I'll be honest with you. I could understand that the response and reaction of those people that's starting to hate the Jews, but not because of the good things that they're doing. And there's a lot of good that many Jews are doing. But these scoundrels, these complete Rashims, wicked individuals that basically are not clear, are not transparent, are not doing good. As a matter of fact, one of the things that disqualifies a leader in the Jewish community is when he's involved economically in funding and siphing off and stealing and not doing good business. That disqualifies a leader in the Jewish community. And I can tell you about some rabbis, I'm not going to go into that basically have a record of conniving and stealing investors' money, similar to what this guy Sam was doing. This is unheard of. They should be completely removed from their position. You know, I as a Jew have very difficult times sometimes just keeping my head up above the water. But I will not ever go down to that road of having to steal somebody else's money, hard work. I let God deal with that. Do what is right before God and right before man. Not stealing money in this way, taking investors' money and throwing it to the Democrats and saying he's doing charity, and then they are using that to fund to undermine the political realm. My friends, in this country of the United States, Jews have done a lot of great good, have created a lot of edifices of charitable work and good that can be palpably seen physically. But the Jews of today, many of the Jews in this Democratic Party, they wreck with complete perversion and complete darkness. Let my soul not attach myself to these individuals. And many institutions are receiving the monies from these entities and people. You know, I mentioned to you I had sent an email, a request for donation from this guy Sam Friedman, and I wonder why have I not gotten a response from him? God's good. God was protecting me. Had he sent me a donation, I would probably have to return it back. Because it's blood money, stolen money, it's corrupt money. And when corrupt money comes and enters into any institution, it begins to filter through that corruption. No, it doesn't get purified. It doesn't get purified. It's not even exalted. There's certain types of money you don't receive in a religious institution. Stolen money, money from harlotry. All of those type of monies are completely not kosher for Jewish work. And yet I read this and my soul just this morning, just basically hearing this coming from Israel. The Eretz Israel, the land and of our heritage and our hope and dreams are locked in there. And yet I read this is what's going on. These stinking Jewish, liberal, leftist communists. I'll be honest with you, as I shared with you it with Psalms 97, verse 9 and 10. God hates evil. God commands us to love him. And if you really love God, you're going to hate these individuals, what they're doing. It's normal to hate these Jews that are in corruption and are doing all sorts of evil. You are to hate these Jews. Yes, hate them. Not for who they are, but what they're doing. You are to hate all wicked individuals involved in wickedness. Psalms 97, verse 10. Love God and hate evil. But we don't get it. What do? Oh, come to my shul. I'll give you an aliyah. We got to reach them back. We got to do kiruv. We've got to reach them, to love them back in. And so our shuls get full of these wicked individuals that have no desire to change their lifestyle. They live in a world of darkness and deceit and have no desire to change. They have no desire. We hope and pray that perhaps if they sit down and listen to some good Torah teachers, their souls will be shaken up and would do Shuvah. But the likelihood of a politician doing Shuvah is very unlikely. He'll probably utilize the religious synagogues to be able to take advantage for the political career. My friends, our own families are being affected by these policies. Their idea of doing right to the community is actually incorrect. And they're harming the community. We're seeing it. We're seeing the damage that they're doing. Great damage. Not only here, but everywhere in the world. As they're pushing forward a globalism that's going to destroy and harm Jewry worldwide. One that will subject the Jews, similar to what happened during the invented pandemic that this country was involved in. Invented, yes. And as you see already, many of my YouTube pages and also groups are being blocked by Facebook because they don't want the videos that I post and videos that I share to go further. We're doing an incredible job even when they lower our algorithm. And they're doing so. They're doing to other rabbis and religious leaders as well, because they don't want the voice of how to be able to get out of this mess. They don't want Torah to be taught. They're reducing the algorithm so that they are on the low bar of the spectrum. And yet, despite all of this, we're getting an incredible amount of people visiting and hearing the messages. And they do so when they start sharing. And you'll notice the new thing is that they start putting a thing here. The link shared is not available. Have many of you seen that? That you share a link and all of a sudden on a different page, it doesn't show up, the link, because our good friend Mark Zuckerberg is blocking. It's having them blocked it. Same thing, as we know, the Facebook and Metaverse universe, including Instagram and WhatsApp, are highly being monitored by the big brother Biden as he is wisping away and telling him, this block, this block, this block. Block all of these pages and all of these content messages. And they're doing it. I'm certain I've been among those who have been blocked, like many of you have been blocked as well, because we are now living in a government that is oppressive. This Biden government is oppressive, is deceitful, and is causing all kinds of harm to the American citizenry. Change must take place. These individuals should be taken to jail. What they desire to do to Trump must come upon the heads of every single individual in the party of the Democratic Party and those wishing to do harm. This is why every day in my tefillot, I pray to Hashem, not only for Trump, because he's going through literal hell, but as he said many times again, what they are doing to him, they want to do to you, the American public. You've seen what took place in Arizona, a complete steal, right in our face. Right in our face, a complete steal. How tons and tons of trucks of mail-in ballots was being dumped in. I mean, I was like completely in shock. And then the video that I did that was blocked on TikTok because it was considered not authentic. A lot of lies are being excused so that they can block you from hearing the truth. They can't handle the truth. And the problem is that they're doing everything they can to block the truth. This is why they hate Elon Musk. Elon Musk is now the liberal leftist #1 enemy. I mean, I have Twitter, and I see the posting of a lot of these liberal leftist Jews, like Streisand, like this meathead, what's his name, Reiner, and all of the Hollywood leftist cohorts that are destroying by their decision to uphold these liberal leftist ideals. They're communists. I mean, Billy Graham was 100% right. The problem is that we don't have that many God-fearers, God-observant Torah Jews in society. We have a lot of liberal leftist Jews that basically give millions of dollars because of their guilt to liberal causes like the ones that basically are destroying this country. Not to support people who are hungry, not to support conservative values. There are very few Jews that support conservative values. And when they do so, they do it quietly. But the very power-hungry and powerful establishment happens to be the Jewish establishment. Let's talk honestly here. How quick did the Jewish community, liberal left primarily, which are in charge of millions and millions and millions of dollars, whose influence reached worldwide, that the very moment that Kanji said he was going to go completely ballistic on the Jewish community, which was wrong, knocked them down, completely had all of his money ports, vias to make money to get him sustained. He was a billionaire. Automatically they said, you know what, we're going to ruin him. We're going to ruin him because of what he said, because he's declaring war against the Jews. What he's really doing was declaring war against the liberal leftist Jewish establishment in this country, who has become a menacing force, and let me say it properly, has become a menacing force to family value, to Torah value, to Torah institutions. And this is why I cannot fathom how many Torah institutions receive the money of these wicked Jews, thinking that somehow they're going to have expiation or atonement for the evils that they're doing upon society and upon our own Jewish community. It's not happening, my friends. God's watching. God sees, and He judges. You know, there's so many disasters that's taking place in so many different Jewish communities. And I wonder, and I say to myself, my God, why is this happening? Why is this taking place? Why are you letting the evil attack the Jewish community? By and large, many of these liberal leftist Jews are being attacked. Even the religious ones are being affected. I'm not God, but you have to ask the questions. Why? Why is this happening? Why have we succumbed to the evil inclination and allowing ourselves to allow legislation of evil laws into this country? To such an extent that you ask yourself, why now the Department of Health and Education, whose head is a transvestite, a Levine, creating policies and rules to ensure that transgenderism becomes part of the policy of this country. That the rights of the LGBTQT, now they have another one, which I don't know what the heck that means. I mean, it's like infanticide? Does that mean bestiality? I mean, everything goes under the title of LGBTQ. There is no morality. There is no right and wrong anymore. You know, you could say, okay, lesbian, gay, transvestites or trans, or any other group you want to attach them to. Everything is okay now. Even pedophilia. They're trying to legislate that into approvals. They've done some rules in California on that. And this is why they're going after your children. Just like now in Israel, they found that was part of the statement in the Interior Ministry of Education. It's astonishing. It's abhorrent. And I think what they're doing in Israel is the correct thing. Stop these parades that basically are calling out to God in repulsion, in abomination. Now you might say I sound like a fundamentalist Christian. My friends, some things are correct. And we can't back out of what is completely immoral and say, yes, it's okay. It's okay, John. You can do what you want to do and you have no consequences for your action. After all, you're my child. And we think that's going to give... No. You got to teach your children. There's a right and there's a wrong. There is a correct and incorrect. There is what they call averot, sins, and what they call kedusha. But we've lost our ways. The Jewish people have lost their ways and have been declared even by God and God's prophet as a people who have blasphemed, who have profaned, who did Hilul Hashem to God's name, profanated your mission. You need to get back to God and God's value, not the secular leftist value, not socialism, not communism. I was so happy to read that 25% of Jewry went to the right. What about the 75%? Still the majority is erring towards the left, is erring against God, against God's commandments, against God's word. You know, some people say, and I know a couple of rabbis who've expressed this, that sometimes it's better that Jews become Christians than they remain secular atheist agnostics. Why would they even dare consider that? You know, you're saying it's preferable for them to go into idolatry than they remain into a level of being completely disconnected from God? Yes. Yes, sometimes it's preferable that they get involved in idolatry because it's easier for them to have at least some sense of fear of something beyond them. And instead of having no fear of God and fear no one, not even human beings. And this is the state of 75% of Jewry. They're atheists. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in Torah. They don't believe in God's word. They don't believe in the fear of God. They don't see the value of Eretz Israel. It becomes just a cultural thing. You know, an ethnic thing. I'm Jewish because my father was Jewish, not knowing that if only your father is Jewish, it doesn't make you a Jew necessarily. It makes you seed of Jews, but it doesn't make you a Jew. And these are the people we call out to return back to God, to get back with God. And yes, sometimes it's better to get into idolatry. God forbid, chas v'shalom, chas v'chalila, they get into the liberal leftist atheism that we're seeing displayed throughout the world. That, my friends, is kafir. That, my friend, is completely prohibited. That, my friend, is an affront to the God of Israel. And God knows how to take care of his people who violate his covenant, who violate his eternal contract. We've seen that take place in our past history. I don't want to see it again. And I'm sure Jewry don't want to see it again, nor the history of humanity wants to see it again. And in the name of anti-Semitism, we have done so much harm to our forefathers. Because what's taking place today is hatred for the way the Jews, we Jews, are conducting ourselves. They see that, and instead of hating the sin of the Jews, they hate the Jews themselves. Which ironically, it's exactly what it says in the Psalms 97:10. Hate wickedness. Hate the wicked that are involved in their wickedness. So when we see this increase in anti-Semitism, we're seeing an increase and iniquity and wantonness to go against God by the Jewish people. So if you want to know why the increase of anti-Semitism, there you got it. Because the Jews are becoming more perverted, more profane towards its God. And they're walking away from God on a higher level. And this is why now is the time to do Shuvah, real Shuvah. Not what I call the crocodile tear Shuvah. That right now you go, oh, you have an emotional experience, and you're going to do Shuvah, oh God, forgive me. And then you go back and do it again. You go back and steal again, and again, and again. Interesting, one time we were talking about this whole entire issue when I was sitting down with Rabbi Eliezer many years ago. And we were talking about why we Jews are always involved in what they call white-collar crime. White-collar crime. Why are we not involved in getting a gun and doing a stick-up and robbing a store? So very clearly because we have seichel. We use our head and we get our head into all types of trouble. We use our minds and our mouth to be able to connive and cheat. No wonder the caricatures of a Jew in the past was with the big nose and almost like squat down, always loving money. These caricatures come from an element of truth, a little bit of truth, but expanded to such an extent that becomes causes for hate. And the reason for the hate is because of the conduct of us Jews. We're not behaving properly before our God, nor before humanity. Imagine a rap sheet of thievery, of stealing investors' money and taking it and doing like this guy Sam Fried did. And I can mention a whole bunch of other friends. There's a whole big list of Jews. Ponzi scheme, a Jew. Many others. You have a whole big list. Jews involved in big racketeering money. Money. And then you wonder why we get the bad reputation that all Jews love is money, not humanity. Then you have politicians, again, searing through the same ugliness of being corrupt and crooked and siphoning away millions and millions of dollars for causes that are completely anti-humanity. But they do it in the name of humanity. They do it because they, in their distorted Yetzer Hara, they do it to fund that evil side of them. Yes, the Jews need God like never before. If anyone in the world needs God, it's my own people. They have fallen away to the ways of the nations. They have embraced the ideals of what is vanity. And there is no rabbi speaking about this, because it may be taken as you're speaking against the Jewish community. You know, my kids basically behave wrong. You want to call it on them and do corrective actions. You don't want to let them get away with it and think that there's not consequences to their actions. You let them know this is wrong. You need to do this. You need to restore the wrong that you have done and get right with God. Get right. Do what is right. I've heard that before. Oh, yes. That gentleman that the 75% of the jewelry hate with a passion. Donald Trump. They hate him. His name reeks into hatred. Why? Because Donald Trump, the whole MAGA movement it talks about doing what is right before God. It's a movement that has God and country. Even though we may fall short in the goals and ideals, at least they're on the right track. They want to bring this country back to God, back into morality, back in doing what is right, because based upon that, that's what's going to make America great again. Oh my God, I said it, MAGA. A Jew saying MAGA. Not mega, MAGA. And yet, the more you say Trump, ooh, bad word, bad word. So what do? Look how smart we Jews are. We love DeSantis because he did that. So what do? I know. We're going to now fund DeSantis. We're going to give him a lot of money for his campaign to divide the Republicans to those who are MAGA. We don't want MAGA in the White House. We want nothing to do with Trump in the White House. No. Let's give our money and back support to DeSantis. By the way, DeSantis is taken care of already. DeSantis, it was talked about that he will run for 2028 after Trump finishes his 4 years. And that is a plan. But unfortunately, those who are pushing the agenda in the Republican Party, who are also rhinos, the Mitt Romney, like the Pence, a whole bunch of other like this ugly lady that basically conjured up an inquisition against Trump. Cheney, that's her name, whose father is a very, very big billionaire and into the government Pentagon arm. Very powerful man. Well, these are the individuals that are trying to divide and conquer the Republican Party for a new direction. I don't think we need a new direction. I think we need Trump to get back in there and complete the job that he was intended to complete, and he hasn't completed. And we need to stop the division in the party. And we need to stop these pseudo-Jewish donors going into to support DeSantis. Of course, my words mean nothing because it comes to the essence of how we need to deal with this issue. Either this country is going to get back to God, or this country is going to fall down so bad that even the nations that depend upon it will feel the fall as a major plague hit their shores. We've only seen the beginning. You've seen thousands and thousands and thousands coming to America. You've seen millions walking across with no one stopping them. Because obviously the current president of the United States is in cahoots with the Economic Forum's goal. The Build Back message wasn't Biden. That came from Schwab. Look it up. The whole idea of bringing to America 100 million immigrants was already stated by the United Nations and the Economic Forum for the goal of one world governance. This president and this administration wishes to turn over its sovereignty, although they may deny it, to the one world order. And that's a reality. It's not just something that we're concocting as a new conspiracy theory. It is declared by the Economic Forum and the United Nations that this is their goal. The threat to Americans and Israelis I'm going to say this very clear. The threat against Americans and Israelis in Israel is not the right, is not those who are pro-Torah and pro-God values. It is the left and their agenda to bring under the whole entire world, the nations of the world, to enslavement of a one world governance, under a philosophy and ideal contrary to the one God. This is what makes it a anti-messianic movement. It is, as Christians would call it, the anti-Christ movement to a one world governance. And we know, those of you who have read a little bit of Christian literature, which I have, the whole idea of being able to have your freedoms limited, that everything you buy or sell will be under their direct direction and governance, under a control of a mechanism that without this mechanism you cannot buy nor can you sell. So complete trade will be completely frozen under their rule. If you don't believe that, just read the Sefer Zorobabel, which I posted and shared. It correlates to the Christian book of Revelation. And you can also read the book of Daniel, which we're going through it in Spanish. My friends, we are in danger more than you can think of. Even though the Republicans got a slim majority in the House, our danger is not over yet. We are in major danger of losing this country, even with these politicians newly elected. I'm glad they're going to let go of Schiff in the intelligence office, but he's going to continue to have information as to what's going on. With his false accusation, with his, what I call, shtickle, dreck input and harm that he has done to this country, it is without any regards to humanity and no regards to the life of this country. Pelosi, thank God she has turned in her resignation, as it were, but she is guilty as heck. Can anyone ever forget how she tore up the speech of Trump right behind his as he was talking? Can anyone forget that she did not mention that she served the Trump administration? These are people that are full of bitterness, full of hatred, because this is what they inspire people to do, to hate everything that's godly, to hate everything that's about God and morality. These are not godly people. These are people who have embraced evil, who have embraced their own selfish interest, making deals with China. Oh, I can't wait until they start subpoenaing all the information, the phones, cell phones, and the records, the bank accounts of all of these politicians that have been completely compromised with China and China's interest in Congress. And they should not only look at Democrats. They need to look very deeply to many of these rhino Republicans. Falwell, this other guy that was on the January 6th, including this other lady that was also there. They need to look at wherever there are possible interest in benefiting from the China deal. Biden is the prime target. It's not his son. We know that his son only inspired his father to go into the road in walks of immorality and create this country as an immoral country, which it is. No one respected anymore. Not even the military men in this country respect Biden. Think about it. Your head in chief, they don't respect him. They tolerate him as a flu, as an epidemic that has hit the military men. They can't stand him. Why would you think that? They'll applaud when they have to serve, but they can't stand him. And they can't stand those individuals who basically embraced the immoral behaviors and conducts. So my fellow Jews, if you feel that you're hated because you're not living up to Torah standards, it's time to do Shuvah. Correct your life. That's my advice. I don't know about your rabbi's advice. Maybe your rabbi's advice is to continue helping protect those who are involved in the practice of wickedness. That's not mine. My advice is very cut and clear. Repent, do Shuvah, get back to God. Leave your wicked ways, says the prophet. Because as I took you out from the land of Israel, because of your ways, I can take you out from the land of the United States. And he can do it in many, many, many ways. Remember, he is the author of life, and he's the author of death. And in his hands, we all are sustained, or we all can be removed. How many Jews do you think in this past year are no longer with us? And yet, do we get the message? My good friend Rabbi Zelenko, who tried to send out the message in these media platforms and was constantly blocked and stopped by Zuckerberg and his whole entire nefarious group of individuals with the one world order people. He will have a consequence. He will have a day of reckoning. He will have a day in which he will shake from within for the harm he has done to the communities of people. He will shake. No doubt about it. Because before God, we will have our time of standing or falling. May all who hear this take time to consider my words and do true repentance, to get back to God. I remember some time ago, and with this I'm going to end, because I do have to get back to work, right? There was a rabbi in a local community here many years ago who began mistreating his fellow congregants. And the mistreatment was ugly. It was humiliating. It was terrible. Mistreated even his Eshes Chayil. And he kept on doing this over and over and over again. And I walked up to him and I said to him, you know, you need to change. You need to do Shuvah. You need to stop mistreating the members of the shul. And if you continue in your way, God's going to take the shul away from you. Well, you know, he was part of an organization that the rabbis are king. You know, they dominate. They are the melech of the community because they started it up. It was his shul. And I said to him, this happened just prior to Tisha B'Av. We know what Tisha B'Av represent. And the first thing that happened was that they came and they closed down his shul. He lost his shul because of bad money dealings that took place. I won't get into all the details, but it wasn't right. And the banks took possession on Tisha B'Av. Terrible, terrible. Oh, it's a terrible sign. To the T of what I had advised them to be careful of. Well, one very wealthy Jewish member in the shul bought out the house. The shul got reopened. But the leader did not listen to my call of reproof. Again, he started on his road of doing harm to various members of the community. Didn't listen one iota. And I said, this time, you're not going to lose, this time, your house. I mean, your shul. You're going to lose your house, your family, and even your employment. Did he listen to me? Arrogance comes before the fall. He could not and would not accept anything I had to say to him, even though I said it, Emmett, from heart to heart, from love, from a person who really cared for him. He didn't listen. Within the year that I had said that to him, and this gentleman continued to attack me, I ignored him. He lost his wife. He lost his community, and he lost his employment with the shul that they rebuilt, but this time without him as the rabbi. My friends, you don't play with God. You don't mistreat people. You don't harm. Do no harm, which is going to be the very center basis of the Messianic era. No harm on the foots on the land of Israel. And my friends, we need to realize there is a God that we must answer to in our daily actions. Either we do good or we do bad. Every single thing we do will have an answer and a response from Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the way we behave and the way we treat other people in this world. And our reward will be in the next world. Do good, and good will reverberate everywhere you go. Do evil, and the evil will be upon your head, and you will be recompensed by that evil. But people have trouble comprehending Shuvah. They think that because they're a rabbi or a leader of a number of people that they are exempt from being called to task. No. You will be called to task. The more you have in your hands, the more you'll be answerable to and for. This is something that goes and applies to all the politicians, all of the leaders, and all of those that are in companies. Corporate company following the current drag of wokeism and all of this new globalism, they need to pay attention and get out of it quickly. Because the great harm you're doing to your own stockholders, shareholders, and company is imminent. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero with the Ways of Israel. May God bless you in this morning to hear the call of Shuvah, to return back to God with all of your heart, with all of your might, with all of your being. Love God, it is commanded to us, with all of your heart, with all of your mind, with all your soul. And hate evil. Psalms 97:10. Shalom.